A woman leads 25 people through a dry Ethiopian riverbed, roughly 100,000 years ago. She stops at a bend in the valley. The earth here has a faint white crust after it dries. She's seen it twice before in her life. She kneels down, scrapes the ground with a flat stone, and starts eating the dirt directly, and her body finally stops screaming. That's not a metaphor. That's biology. The craving that sent her to that exact bend in that exact riverbed is the same craving that makes you reach for the salt shaker before you've even tasted your food. Same alarm, same nervous system, same species. The taste itself was sharp, slightly bitter, nothing like the clean crystal salt on your table now, but her body responded immediately. A relief that registered somewhere below thought, somewhere older than language. The only thing that's changed since then is how hard you have to work to answer it. For over 300,000 years, salt was one of the hardest substances on Earth to find. Not expensive, not inconvenient, physically difficult. Your body needs sodium to survive, not wants, needs. Your heart uses it to fire. Your neurons use it to send signals. Without it, the fluid around your cells collapses, your blood pressure drops, your muscles stop contracting properly. A human being can die of sodium deficiency in days. Your body has always known this. So it built an alarm, sharp and specific enough that you can still feel it if you go long enough without salt. That alarm doesn't ask politely. It shows up as a craving that makes plain food taste unfinished, as a pull toward the shaker before your fork even reaches your plate. Ancient humans felt that alarm constantly, and for most of that time, they had no reliable way to answer it. Which raises a question researchers spent decades arguing over, not just when humans started eating salt, but when they started going out of their way to find it. When did sodium stop being something they stumbled across, and start being something they actively hunted? The first strategy was simple: follow the animals. Elephants in Kenya travel 40 kilometers to chip salt-laced rock from cave walls with their tusks. Deer lick road salt off winter pavement. Gorillas eat sodium-rich soil straight from riverbanks. None of that is accidental. It's the same signal your body sends you at the dinner table. Your ancestors watched this behavior for hundreds of thousands of years. They tracked migration patterns, followed herds across seasons, and noticed the places animals kept returning to: the mineral springs, the salt licks, the sodium-rich river clay. Those became the places humans returned to as well. Go where the animals go. Eat what they eat. Let the landscape point you toward the one thing your body can't manufacture on its own. For most of human history, that was the entire strategy, and it worked well enough to keep a species alive across ice ages, droughts, and continents. But that strategy had a brutal flaw. Salt deposits aren't evenly spread across the planet. They cluster in certain regions and vanish almost entirely from others, including much of the East African Rift Valley, where early human evolution actually played out. Anthropologist Timothy Johns of McGill University spent years studying this exact problem, and his research suggests sodium scarcity wasn't a crisis for early humans so much as a constant low-grade pressure. A body always slightly undersupplied. A craving never fully answered. That pressure shaped something else too: how ancient humans treated each other. In 2009, anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy published research on cooperative breeding in early human groups, and buried inside it was a detail about resource sharing. Rare, high-value finds: honey, fat, mineral-rich food were shared far more broadly than common ones. If someone found a salt deposit, it didn't stay private. It spread, because the group's survival depended on sodium reaching everyone, not just the person who found it. That's how early humans kept each other alive, not through trade, through the same cooperative instinct that let a slow, clawless primate outlast animals that were faster and stronger in almost every way. You can still see the ancient blueprint today. The Hadza of Tanzania get most of their sodium from meat and organ meat. A hunter who brings down an impala eats the liver almost immediately, still warm, and that organ does real physiological work. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe, who spent years living with the Hadza, documented how their diet naturally supplies enough sodium without a single grain of added salt. The Kung San of the Kalahari show the same pattern. Richard Lee of the University of Toronto found their natural diet delivered roughly 690 milligrams of sodium a day, no shaker, no seasoning. That number is almost exactly what modern cardiologists now consider the ideal daily sodium intake for a healthy human heart. Your ancestors were hitting the target without trying, because the food itself was right not through discipline, not through some ancient nutritional wisdom, just through eating what the land actually offered. Then agriculture arrived, and the target moved. But before that break, something else happened first, something that rewired the entire human relationship with salt and quietly set every salt road, salt tax, and salt war in motion. Humans learned how to make it. In 2011, archaeologist Olivier Weller uncovered a site in northeastern Romania called Lunca, dated to roughly 6000 BC, 8,000 years ago. What he found stopped researchers cold. This wasn't a lucky mineral find. It was a facility. Ceramic vessels, fire pits, structural remains, all evidence that people were boiling brine from a natural spring, over and over, to extract crystallized salt on purpose. And the people doing it weren't a civilization. No city, no writing, no government. Just early farmers, recently settled, running a salt operation organized enough to leave a permanent archaeological footprint. Weller's team pulled hundreds of broken ceramic fragments from the site, the casualties of a process that meant filling heavy pots with brine and holding them over intense heat for hours at a time. The thermal stress cracked the pottery constantly. People kept making more. That broken pot count is what convinced researchers Lunca wasn't a one-off. It was used continuously, season after season, likely across generations. Chemical analysis on artifacts up to 100 kilometers away carried the same mineral signature as the Lunca Spring. The salt was moving, being traded, being distributed across a landscape too large for that to be an accident. Salt was already a commodity before bronze, before writing, before a single empire existed. Lunca wasn't alone. China's Yuncheng Salt Lake shows evidence of organized salt harvesting from roughly the same window. So does the Peruvian coast, where communities built shallow clay basins to evaporate seawater around 5000 BC. 3 continents, 0 contact with each other. The same idea, independently, within about 1,000 years of each other. When a behavior appears on its own across separated populations at roughly the same time, it usually means the environment changed. And it had. Farming had just begun. Grain has almost no sodium. When humans settled down and started living on wheat, barley, and rice, their sodium intake collapsed right as the craving that had shaped their entire species for 300. 0 years stayed exactly as sharp as ever. Anthropologist Mark Nathan Cohen documented this in his landmark 1977 study on the health costs of agriculture. Skeletal remains show early farmers were shorter, more prone to dental disease, and showed more signs of nutritional stress than the hunter-gatherers before them. Sodium deficiency itself doesn't leave a clean mark on bone, but the broader pattern was unmistakable. Farming made people more numerous. It also made them worse off, at least at first, and once the food supply stopped supplying the one mineral the nervous system can't build on its own, salt stopped being a background resource and became something closer to a controlled substance. Once deficiency was the default, control of salt became control of survival. Every Roman soldier was paid partly in salt. That's where the word salary comes from. Ancient Egyptians preserved their dead in natron, a sodium compound, because salt was that fundamental to their idea of purity itself. Caravans crossed 1,000 kilometers of Saharan desert, carrying slabs of rock salt from the mines of Tagaza, trading it weight for weight against gold, because in a farming world far from the sea, salt could keep you alive and gold could not. Governments taxed it, guarded it, went to war over it. France's salt tax, the gabelle, was one of the most hated instruments of royal power in the 18th century, applied unevenly, enforced brutally, and deeply tangled in the popular fury that eventually fed a revolution. Gandhi's 1930 Salt March wasn't a protest about seasoning. It was a protest about survival, about a colonial power taxing a mineral 1 billion bodies physically required to function. That's what salt actually is, underneath the shaker and the dinner table, not a condiment. A controlled substance that governments understood was worth controlling long before anyone had the nutritional science to explain why. And then, in the span of about 150 years, salt got cheap. Industrial evaporation, mechanized mining, global shipping. A kilogram of table salt now costs less than a cup of coffee, and it's added invisibly into almost everything you eat before the package ever reaches you. The scarcity ended. The craving didn't. Your nervous system is still calibrated for a hunter-gatherer's sodium intake, roughly 700 milligrams a day from real food. The average American today eats about 3,400 milligrams, nearly 5 times that. almost entirely pre-added before you ever touch it. And your brain still doesn't register enough, because the system that evolved to chase a rare vital mineral across a landscape that hid it was never built for a world where sodium is inside everything. In 2011, neuroscientist Wolfgang Langens found that sodium deficiency activates the exact same reward pathway in the brain as addictive substances, flooding it with dopamine the moment sodium finally arrives. That relief you feel isn't in your head, it's neurochemical. Your brain is still rewarding you for finding something it believes is rare. Nobody's told it the shortage is over. You are running ancient software in a world it was never designed for. 300,000 years of programming, still executing perfectly, aimed at a threat that no longer exists. And the software is doing exactly what it was built to do: chase sodium, signal relief when you find it, and never fully switch the alarm off, because for most of human history, switching it off would have killed you. It doesn't know the shortage ended. Nobody sent the update. Picture that morning at Lunka one more time. The air is cold. The spring smells faintly mineral, faintly sulfurous. A group of people carry heavy ceramic pots to the water's edge and fill them with brine. They build fires and tend them for hours, feeding the flames while the pots crack and get replaced, again and again. Because the crystals forming at the bottom are worth the labor. When the water finally evaporates, a white crust is left behind. They scrape it out carefully, wrap it in leaves and hide. Some of it they'll use tonight, some of it will travel for weeks in someone else's hands, toward a group they'll never meet, who need the exact same thing they do. That is where every salt road in history begins. Not with an empire, not with a currency, with a body, doing what bodies have always done, refusing to stop wanting the one thing it can't make for itself. Somewhere in northeastern Romania, 8,000 years ago, someone knelt over a cracked clay pot and scraped white crystals from the bottom with their fingernails, solving the exact same problem your body is trying to solve every time you reach across the table. They just had to work a lot harder for the answer. The salt sitting there right now, 2 feet away, unremarkable. Unnoticed, that's the end of a 300,000-year search. Your ancestors tasted it in blood and clay and mineral spring water. They followed elephants to find it. They boiled brine for hours in pots they knew would crack. They carried it across deserts and paid for it in gold. They built empires to control it and started revolutions to take it back. The search is over. The craving isn't. It never left. It's just been waiting for you to notice it was still there.